Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video today, I'm going to be reviewing 3 historical mystery books that I recently read and reviewed on NetGalley. Those 3 books will be The Scottish Ladies Detective Agency by Lydia Travers, The Starlet Letter by Julie Matheson, and The Murder Wheel by Tom Mead. Thank you to all of the publishers for providing me with my free copy via NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. The first book I will be reviewing in this video is The Scottish Ladies Detective Agency by Lydia Travers. I already discussed this book in one of my wrap-ups recently, so I will link that in the card if you want to go check out that video. All in all, I liked this one. This is the first in a new cozy historical series following aristocratic Maud McIntyre, who has recently started her own detective agency in Edinburgh. She is assisted by her former lady's maid turned assistant named Daisy. I forget the exact year this book took place, but I believe it was in the Edwardian era. In this first book, Maud and Daisy are hired by the Duchess of Duddingston to attend a house party at her estate. Recently, at several other house parties, jewels have been taken, so the Duchess wants to make sure the same thing doesn't happen at her party. Of course, though, things go very, very wrong when someone at the house party is killed. The dynamic of a female detective and her loyal servant kind of reminds me of the Lady Hardcastle mysteries. Sorry, I just drew a blank there for a second. Which is the series that starts with A Quiet Life in the Country. Granted, I have not read those yet, so it may not be the best comparison. It's just where my mind goes. So maybe this would be a good book for you to read if you like that series, maybe not. It's a pretty enjoyable country house mystery setup, and I enjoyed the potential romance that was being set up for Maud in this first book. The character of Daisy very much reminded me of Daisy from Downton Abbey, and not just because they have the same first name. They have that similar personality of someone who has been in service but wants more from their life and holds these liberal ideas. I do wish that this book had been told in dual perspectives from both Maud and Daisy, because when they're at the house party, Daisy has to don her lady's maid garb once again in order to integrate herself with the servants. And I think it would have been more enjoyable to actually read about her investigation from her perspective instead of just having Daisy come to Maud and summarize what she has learned. I think it would have been a little more interesting for me as a reader to actually see those things happening instead of just receiving like a couple paragraphs of summary after the fact. Another thing that I did really like about this book is Maud is a lover of detective fiction, and so there are references throughout the book to her reading mystery stories that were popular in this time period, such as the Sherlock Holmes mysteries. I really enjoyed that aspect because obviously I love mysteries, so I liked that aspect of her character. All in all, I thought this was a cute, cozy mystery read, and if you are interested in checking it out for yourself, the book was published on the 27th of April. The publisher is Bookouture, and you can go get a copy for yourself now. I will also add that for all 3 of these books, I will link my Goodreads reviews of them in the description, so you can go check out those reviews as well. With that being said, let's move on to the second book I'm going to review in this video, The Starlet Letter by Julie Matheson. The Starlet Letter is due to be published on June 6th by Star Creek Press, which is an imprint founded by the author Julie Matheson. This is the first in the Canary House mystery series, which is set in 1931 New York. The 2 main characters are twins, Viola and Vivienne Vanderbeek. They are 17 when the story starts, but do celebrate their 18th birthday over the course of the novel. The Vanderbeek family has been hit very hard by the recent stock market crash, And so their home, Canary House, has now been turned into a boarding house and is home to many eccentric residents. During the course of this novel, Babs Leroy, a famous Ziegfeld Follies star who is trying to make a comeback after a recent hiatus, moves into Canary House. Viola and Vivian begin to suspect that something is up with Babs, and so they begin looking into her mysterious background. Then Babs ends up going missing. Out of the twins, Viola was my favorite. She is much shyer and a voracious reader, so I can relate to that. Throughout this story, she is reading the Starlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, and she makes some parallels between her book and what is going on with Babs. I do enjoy the idea of this literary connection in the mystery. I will say though, at first, I kind of felt like the parallels were a bit of a stretch, and Viola was referencing Babs being like Hester Prynne, but I personally didn't really see a strong comparison between the two. So I really liked the idea, but I felt like the connections were a bit too tentative at first. As for Vivian, the other twin, she is much more outgoing, flirtatious, and boisterous compared to her twin sister. And I think that dynamic does really work with the two of them as main characters and as an amateur detective duo. However, there were times where I personally felt like Vivian came across as a bit mean. I do think to a certain extent the author is setting up a character arc for her, because there are moments in the book where she thinks about how nice Viola is and she wishes that she could be more like her sister. But there were times where she did bother me a little bit because I felt like she was coming across as a bit too harsh. The other thing I did not really like about this book is the romantic relationship that is being set up between Vivian and a young detective named Sergeant Kowalski. The romance between the two of them, in my opinion, was just too much too fast, and I don't think the author really convinced me why the two of them would be a good match. Their affection for each other just seemed to develop too quickly, and I didn't really understand what it was that made the two of them like each other and see a genuine connection there. Granted, I didn't realize when I requested this book that it is classified as young adult, and I often think in young adult books that the romantic relationships are just not believable and too quick for my liking. So this may just be a personal preference thing, and if you are a voracious young adult reader, you may genuinely enjoy the relationship between the two of them. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt here. What I really did like about this book was the author's tone. It is at times very tongue-in-cheek, and there were moments that I thought were really genuinely charming and humorous. The characters living at Canary House are all very eccentric, colorful characters. The author, in her note at the end of the book, describes the concept behind this series as Nick and Nora from The Thin Man meets a Wes Anderson film. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check the Starlet Letter out. Would I keep reading this series? Possibly. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not opposed to checking out another book by this author. Finally, I read The Murder Wheel by Tom Mead. This book is scheduled to be published by Mysterious Press, and it is the second Joseph Spector locked room mystery. I will say I did not read the first book, and I had absolutely no trouble following the plot of this one, so you could hypothetically jump in here if you wanted to, though you probably would get more out of it if you read the first book, which was titled Death and the Conjurer, I believe. This book is going to be published on July 11th of this year. Like I said, it is the second in the series, and basically the whole premise of this series is to be a modern-day tribute to the golden age of mysteries and locked room mysteries in particular. This is a subgenre of classic mysteries where the murder takes place in a confined space, such as a locked room, where it's very difficult for people to enter or exit without being seen. This book actually has 3 locked room murders in it, which by the third one I was kind of like, oh my god, like how many people are going to be killed in confined spaces in this book? The third one, my suspension of disbelief was a little bit high, but all in all, I did enjoy this one as well. This book is set in London in the year 1938. The main character we're following is a young solicitor named Edmund Ibbs, who is also a big fan of magic. He is representing this woman named Carla Dean. Carla Dean was on a Ferris wheel with her husband Dominic when Dominic was shot and killed. Naturally, it seems like Carla could be the only person who killed her husband since they were in a Ferris wheel car when he was shot. But Ibbs is not entirely convinced that Carla is actually the one who pulled the trigger. Then, while he is attending the magic show of a famous magician named Professor Paolini, another murder occurs, which Ibbs believes may be connected to Carla Dean's case. During the course of this investigation, Ibbs also meets elderly magician Joseph Spector, who helps him try to uncover the truth. Spector has a working relationship with Inspector Flint of the Scotland Yard police force. This book is intended as a tribute to the golden age of mysteries, and I think the author accomplished that really well. It did read a lot like a golden age mystery, in my opinion, with some elements of, I don't really know how to describe it. There are moments that seem a little bit self-aware, also mixed in, which honestly I kind of liked. At the end, when Spector is explaining how the murders occurred, there are footnotes redirecting you back to pages so that you can go look at the clues you missed, which I thought was a really fun touch. And right before Spector is about to explain everything that happened, the author has just a one-page chapter basically acknowledging the reader and saying, okay, if there are any you sleuths out there who want to make your final guesses, I cannot give you any reward for guessing correctly, but this is your last chance to lock it in before the truth is revealed. And I thought that was really fun, that breaking of the fourth wall there. I did think the reveal of the murderer made sense, and I really loved the inclusion of the footnotes. If you actually had a physical copy, I think it would be fun to then flip back to those pages and see the clues you might have missed earlier. However, I did not really like the epilogue in this book. Basically, the author throws one last twist at you, and I kind of felt like that wasn't necessary. It did dampen my enjoyment of the book a little bit, because I think the original solution was more satisfying than this little caveat that was thrown in there. And I didn't really agree with Spector's sentiment. At the end, I kind of felt like the logic there didn't really track. So I would have liked this book even more if the epilogue hadn't been included. So everyone, those were my thoughts on these 3 historical mystery arcs I read recently. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if any of these books sound interesting to you, make sure to go check them out when they are released. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. My social media links are down below if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you next time.